Right, guys, this is a letter I wrote back in 2013 to CNN about a TV program that they've made. Det är ett brev som jag skrev 2013 till CNN och jag personligen lämnade upp det på deras kontor i Hongkong. Vi fick bort programmet faktiskt. Det var ju ganska skoj. Finns det ett intresse att översätta det till svenska så gör jag gärna det, men det här blir på engelska. Då kör vi. Leif Coorlim, CNN, One CNN Center, Atlanta, Georgia, United States of America, 4th of June, 2013. Dear Mr. Coorlim, I write to you in connection with the recent CNN show, The Fighters, which you directed. Let us be clear from the outset that we are totally against all forms of human trafficking and other violations of human rights, wherever they may occur in the world. We do not pretend that our country, the Philippines, is perfect and, as the other nations, both developed and developing. There is much to be done in respect of upholding human rights. We support all efforts made to eliminate the genuine trafficking of our fellow citizens. Having said that, we are compelled to comment on the fighters, which we consider raises more questions than it gives answers, and in places is fundamentally, factually incorrect. This was a TV program that CNN was running non-stop back in 2013. And they did take it away after this letter. If it was the letter or not, I have no idea. But I wrote this, and as I said, I hand-delivered it to them. We were interested to watch your program, but are disappointed that a news agency of impeccable global standing was presented such a biased and unbalanced view on what is a very serious issue. Investigative journalism is a wonderful tool, but it is imperative that a story is considered from all angles. We believe that you have failed to do so. Factual inaccuracies. Your footage includes shots of Fields Avenue in Angeles City, Pampanga. However, you identified as the red light district of Manila. The camera even picks out the names of the establishments that are located in Angeles. This is pretty straightforward mistake, or possibly this was done knowingly for the sake of dramatic effect. Why is CNN misleading its viewers? If your story is so compelling, why the need for inaccuracies? We are then given shots of girls who stood in the street and you refer them as children. This is not the case. These girls are adults, fully licensed and doing absolutely nothing against their will. Why do you portray them to the world as children, knowing full well that they are not? We note with interest that your buzzword is children, as opposed to the often used minors. Were your allegations actually true? We would have no complaint at your choice of language. However, given that they are far from the truth, this just adds dramatic effect to further mislead your viewers. Maybe you're on the same form of moral crusade. If so, we suggest that your investigative journalist starts on the Strip in Las Vegas and the cocktail lounges of Washington, D.C., where our citizens are subject to the genuine horrors of human trafficking. We welcome support. When you come on a puritanical mission and present the facts as something they're not, then you're not welcome. We suggest that you take a long, hard look in the mirror. In your commentary, you state that court cases are raffled in order to overcome the backlog of cases. This is again factually inaccurate. The reasons cases are raffled is to take every step to ensure that cases are dealt with by an independent judge. You and your associates apparently spent 2 years undercover researching your program, and yet you present as facts that are strip bars in the port area of Manila. There have been no strip bars in the port area of Manila, the capital, since 1960s. This is cold, hard facts. What type of diligence do you as a director carry out to ensure that your program is factually correct? Clearly, your procedures are insufficient and well below the standard corroborated investigative journalism that the global public has a right to expect from your organization. Your program and your website both suggest that there are hundreds of thousands of forced child sex slaves in the Philippines. Can your investigative journalists please tell us where this vast number of abused minors are located. We've not come across this, and in the many interviews we've conducted with Western tourists over many years, they have never met or been offered a child sex slave. Tell us where these hundreds of thousands of our children are, and we will take immediate action to ensure that these genuine victims of human trafficking are properly rescued. The point, Mr. Coorlim, is that your investigative journalism will not be able to tell us where these wretched children are, because they do not exist. Again, you're factually incorrect, but this time, with this story, you have slurred us as a nation. Cecilia Flores Ubanda, aka Commander Levi, your program actually questions the integrity of Miss Flores Ubanda, but fails to give the full story to your viewer. Set out below are the relevant facts relating to Miss Flores Ubanda that we believe you should have made clear. She's a former New People's Army NPA commander, and her nom de guerre was Commander Levi. The NPA is a rebel communist group operating to this day in the Philippines, has been designated as a foreign subway organization by no less than the US State Department. The NPA has also designated as a subway group by the European Union's Common Foreign and Security Policy. She now controls the Philippine NGO, non-governmental organization, Visayan Forum Foundation. In connection with her role as Visayan Forum, she's been charged in the Philippine Department of Justice with the alleged embezzlement of $5.1 million. The United States Agency for International Development, USAID, from USAID. This is a matter of public record and should have been unearthed by even the most junior of investigative journalism. Why were your viewers not given this information in order that they could then form a balanced view of the story being presented to them? The NPA has spread fear throughout the country for decades. If such a group operated in the United States, they would be branded as subways, demonized as such, and brought to justice immediately. If such a group operated in a territory where the United States has taken military action, Afghanistan or Iraq, they would have been classified as insurgents and eliminated in the name of pacification. It was not that long ago that the United States funded politically motivated groups in the name of the fight against communism, the Mujahideen, Bin Laden being a prime example. Now your organization links hands with this woman in the name of the fight against human trafficking. The double standard you have applied defy belief. What was going through your mind, Mr. Coorlim, when you walked, accompanied by Commander Levi, into a bank of her choice? Did you for 1 minute consider the charges raised by USAID? Did you even consider that your on-screen action was just further encouragement for yet more funding? Did your 2-year investigation really identify, to your satisfaction, where the funding goes? Manny Pacquiao was used as a major draw card to your program, The Fighters. Ubanda, Commander Levi, was heard to say that if Pacquiao didn't show up to support the program, they would destroy him in the media. Is there a suggestion that this former member of the NPA was blackmailing our national hero to support her crusade and give it credibility through his mere presence? Did CNN investigative journalists identify the fact that Pacquiao's privileged speak of human trafficking was written by Visayan Forum and distributed to the media and Congress before Pacquiao had actually had the chance to read it himself? In his speech, Pacquiao referred to my good friend Cecilia Ubanda, a speech written by Ubanda herself. How can this woman treat a congressman and the man that gives our nation hope like a mere puppet in her manipulative campaign? Non-governmental organization. Let us move on to the role of non-organizations, NGOs, and the supposed fight against human trafficking in particular. We would like to focus the activities of International Justice Mission, IJM, an American NGO operating here in our country, the Philippines. IJM was featured prominently in your recent program. In your 2-year undercover operation, we believe that CNN should be more rigorous in understanding the role of IGM and the modus operandi that it employs. We are surprised that you presented them as heroes when they're nothing but heroes to us. IGM routinely plant minors in the establishment in which we work. They then organize raids in our establishment on the suspicion that minors may be inside. IGM are complicit in issuing these minors with fake IDs, and sole purpose of the process is to set up alleged crimes. We believe this in itself is human trafficking. The latest IGM trick is to pay foreign nationals to perpetrate the planting of minors in establishment. These foreigners are normally questionable character and desperate for money. They would do anything for it. This is provoking and not seeking to stem or eliminate crime. The results in our people being jailed with little or no means to defend themselves. Those that are arrested as a result of IGM's sponsored raids are coerced and forced, in many cases unwittingly, to perjure themselves and sign blank affidavits. This allows for our fellow citizens to be thrown in jail, and IGM report more great successful statistic in the fight against human trafficking. This is a sham, and it is a simple way of generate funding through donation and pay bonuses to IGM executives so that they can continue to live their lavish and protected lifestyles. So innocent Filipinos are jailed without reason and without an opportunity to protest their innocence, whilst these foreigners who are portrayed as our saviors simply lie in their pockets. This is not acceptable to us. IGM pays $3 million per annum for the rental of their Washington office. IGM pays $290,000 per annum to its CEO. IGM pays its Philippine field agents $150,000 per annum. These numbers are beyond our comprehension, but we do understand that the only way that this level of wealth can be sustained is by preying on the undereducated and creating crimes from thin air. This is a business machine, not an NGO. The remuneration of IGM field agents at approximately 6.3 million pesos per annum is more than 8 times what our president earns. How can this be justified? When we review the financials of IGM in the Philippines, we note that 97% of the income is spent on wages, transportation, and salaries. How can that possibly help the genuine victims of human trafficking? We've been trying to contact Gary Haugen, IGM's CEO, for 5 years now. However, he has never responded to us. How can this be? How can the man who is built up to be our hero in the fight against human trafficking refuse to speak to the people that are affected by his organization's action? Haugen is not interested in talking. Why should the truth stand in the way of the greatest gravy train in the 21st century? In our view, Haugen has himself become a human trafficker, and we see no end in sight. Sadly, we see, as state-sponsored, Subway is openly supported and promoted by the administration of President Obama of the United States. We refer to field agents above. How sinister is it that an NGO classified its workers as agents? Take a look at the IGM logo and the top of their reports. Maybe you'll see alarming similarity to the logo of the United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. What is that? We're supposed to interpret from this. For sure, we do not see as the activity of a simple NGO. If Haugen were really the protector of human rights that he professes, why does he condone the blocking of our Twitter accounts? Why does he refuse to accept mail? Why does he not answer our calls? And why does he shred documents in the manner of that now extinct American accounting giant? He hides behind the computer screen in Washington, claiming success after success and dollar after dollar. In reality, he's a coward and a criminal. Ironically, his own Twitter account seems to work extremely well. And he certainly finds time to talk to Jim Clancy on CNN whenever the opportunity arises. IGM referred to the rescue of victims of human trafficking. We are surprised that CNN's investigative journalists did not interview any of these so-called rescued victims. or read their online blogs. What they would have found is the vast majority of these people would have been adult women who had needed a need or desire to be rescued. Maybe this part of the picture should have been painted better in your program. Let us contrast the Philippine situation with Cambodia, arguably home of some of the gravest human trafficking crimes on the face of the planet. IGM has been operating in Cambodia for many years, and any layman would agree that their presence is very much needed. However, once again, IGM has been criticized for their modus operandi, in particularly the buy-bust method, where IGM undercover operatives attempt to purchase the services of an underage girl, and once the perpetrator accepts the money, the police are waiting to make the arrest. Fellow NGO consider this as an entrapment, and even a judge accused the IGM of being guilty of the offense of trying to purchase the sexual services of a minor under Cambodian law. Cambodia should be one of the easiest places to achieve real success against real human traffickers. Yet even there, IGM fails foul of their own bullying tactics and lack of understanding of local law and cultures. We addressed our first letter to Jim Clancy of CNN, as he had interviewed Haugen on more than one occasion. We should have addressed it to you, as you have clearly fallen for the smooth talk and the lies perpetrated in the name of the fight against human trafficking. You and your team of investigative journalists have been conned. You have simply allowed this man to perpetuate the myths and create yet more revenues for the generation of easy money. We expect more of a celebrated agencies such as yours. Republic Act 10-364. You presented a new, expanded and anti-human trafficking law, RA 10364, which has recently been adopted here in our country. Did you actually bother to read it? Did your lengthy research period allow you to consider the implications of this act? We would think that you had read the document. However, if you had, then your program would have at least given some airtime to the worrying implications. The following can be interpreted as form of human trafficking: withholding salary, wages from an employee, even if that person had been caught stealing red-handed; suspend an employee for not carrying out the requirements of their role; and making a cash advance to an employee against future salary wages. If this law were enacted in your country, almost every American would be a victim of human trafficking. Look at the current payday loans scandal in the United Kingdom. This is extortion on a major scale, but in the UK, it continues to plunge citizens into massive debt without significant challenge. If we make an employee advance here in the Philippines, many times with nil or nominal interest, it is considered as bonding that employee until the amount has been fully repaid, and the employer runs the risk of being considered as a human trafficking. Why is this anomaly not mentioned in your program? Maybe it is because IGM, a foreign NGO, is behind every clause written into RA 10364. In fact, IGM openly sat next to Oebanda when she lobbied Congress for the new law. We are faced with an agent of the Western world imposing a doctrine on us that they could never consider imposing on their own people. Is this another rising of the dark colonial powers? One rule for us and another for them. The reason for the involvement of IGM in the creating of RA 10364 is that it allows their field agents to operate with total impunity above the law of our land on the basis they've rewritten it. Our citizens are no longer allowed to file cases against these wretched field agents, as they now carry some impregnable immunity. Are we going the same way as Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo Bay? These IGM field agents oversee the arrest and detention of innocent Filipino citizens as a result of late night raids by their stormtroopers on our establishments. These same people are forced to sign documents against their will, and when they refuse or resist, they be deprived of food and water until they finally buckle up and perjure themselves with statements that cannot later be recanted. We, through the dark days of a world ruled by fear and the likes of the Waffen-SS, the Stasi and the KGB, were long behind us. How wrong can you be? The actions that IGM are taking in our country in the name of fight against human trafficking are in fact human trafficking crimes in their own right. The most recent examples of these stormtroopers-led raids, rescue mission according to IGM, occurred in Pampanga. IGM made the bizarre claim that they rescued 80 victims from one establishment, of which 90 were minors. All of them were employees, properly licensed by our government, and all of them were working on their own free will. Some of these rescued victims have had their life destroyed as a result of their grievances, and they're clearly, vividly recorded through social media and online chat rooms. These people were not victims of human trafficking. They needed nor wanted to be rescued. They cannot comprehend the position they now find themselves in as a result of IGM's moral crusade in our country, the point at which they become trafficked when IGM stepped in and denied them their basic human rights. Were you aware that many of these victims were only released from IGM custody with a writ of habeas corpus? The stormtroopers engaged and encouraged by IGM do not spare anyone during the raids. Not only are they rescuing our fully licensed employees, they also pick up totally innocent customers that happen to be unlucky enough to be frequenting our fully licensed business at the time of the raid. These customers are then subjected to hours, sometimes days in custody, and we become very confused as to whether they have been rescued or arrested. We understand that some of our customers have been charged with human trafficking offenses for sharing a drink or a meal with a Philippine citizen. How can this possibly be construed as human trafficking? Would IGM get away with these outrageous tactics anywhere in the Western world? We think the answer is very clear. This is not opportunistic tactic to make those statistics, lies, damn lies, and statistics look even better. IGM funding grew from 27 million to 36 million last year. There is irony in every story, and this has no exception. IGM raid the bars of Pampanga in pursuit of their moral crusade, yet in the heart of Makati, Manila's business district, a blind eye is turned to highly dubious policies operated by American-owned Change and Plush five-star hotel. It is commonly known as fact that Hard Rock Cafe Makati is a major pickup spot. You know what I mean with pickup spot. This establishment makes a 300 peso cover charge to those that they consider are ladies of the night, but applies no such charge to the A and B markets, who of course spends the most. Conway Bar at Makati, Shangri-La, and Icon nightclub at the Intercontinental. Intercontinental is closed now, they demolished the building. Hotel Makati are both well-known hangouts for ladies of the night. Have these fine and very veritable establishments ever been raided? Of course not. In one place, a woman can be a paying customer, but 2 hour taxi rides later, the same woman does exactly the same thing. Then she becomes a trafficking victim and in need of rescue. IGM and Commander Levi makes no mention of this, and you make no effort to draw out these facts in the name of balanced reporting. For IGM, the soft target, not an American-owned chain or a 5-star hotel, represents the easier money. We are not sure if your investigative journalists researched the IGM website. If they had, they would have noted that for a donation of 4,500 by Visa or MasterCard, the donor is guaranteed that an establishment in the Philippines will be raided. And it's an establishment that is fully licensed by the Philippine government. The one that does not fit IGM's puritanical profile, and of course, is not TGI Fridays or Hard Rock Cafe. This money is plundered from the average American taxpayer who has no concept of the misery that their well-intended donation will cause. IGM is known to take interns who pay for their internship. To us, this appears as if IGM are charging young people for working and creating free labor. Is this another example of human trafficking by IGM, the very agency that is sworn of stamping this practice out. No less than our very own vice president was recently fighting for the rights of Filipino trainees serving apprenticeship in Singapore. These trainees are paid 75% the normal salary for doing the job. This is a clear example of human rights abuses and human trafficking. Yet IGM is fully justified in charging people to work for them. Where is the logic? How can this be right? Philippine culture. Your 2 years of research have clearly not generated any knowledge of the culture of the Philippine people. If you had, you would stand up on your global stage and promote the elimination of poverty in our country, and not the enrichment of some corrupted foreign NGO that simply makes money on our expense. We're not blind in our culture, and we know there are bad elements in the Philippine society. There are bad elements in your own society too, many of them very public. We have no problem with fighting such elements and openly welcome support in tackling our genuine problems. Your footage shows Commander Levi on the Negros navigation ferries. To us, she looks just like the famous ambulance chaser lawyers that have operated so openly in your country. Before you promote her actions as heroic, you need to understand a little bit more about our culture. We're a nation of 7,107 islands with different languages and dialects widely used. Many of our people are impoverished, undereducated, and desperate for a better life, a better job, and a chance to support their families. To achieve this, they travel, and our people are prepared to travel almost anywhere in order to achieve their goals. This will help to explain to you why there are more than 8 million Filipinos living and working overseas and remit their surplus earnings back home. Many provincial people aspire to the big city of Manila and the potential to work overseas. It is not our culture to allow these people to travel alone to such intimidating places, particularly when their English may be non-existent and their Tagalog, the national dialect, poor. Such people will seek assistance from friends, relatives, acquaintances that have knowledge of the city and the language. Filipinos do not travel alone. We always travel in groups. This is our culture, and it has now been a place for as long as anyone alive here today. Now, former NPA member Commander Levi sees it fit to classify this as human trafficking. Those trying to help their fellow citizens are arrested and charged. Charges are simply left to flounder on the streets of a city they do not know, with no money and nowhere to call home. These are the victims, and Commander Levi is a human trafficker. It is interesting that Manny Pacquiao, our world champion boxer, appears in your program. Your 2 years research would have shown that Manny was an impoverished street kid in General Santos, Mindanao, when he came to Manila. He was accompanied by the man who became his manager. What transpired is indeed a fairy tale. However, if Commander Levi had applied her ambulance chasing tactics, the manager-to-be would most likely have ended up in jail. A young and naive Pacquiao forced to sign an affidavit against him, leaving no way to start and support a boxing career. In short, one of the greatest talents ever known to grace the ring would have been lost to the world, and the 100 million people would have been deprived of their hero. Commander Levi apparently fought against the forces of President Marcos for a betterment of the Philippine people. It seems that she has now lost her way. Maybe after all this year, the concept of the political idealism has given way to the lure of American dollars. Cause and effect. Your program portrayed girls claiming to be 12 years old who are providing sexual contents online for perverts in the Western world. We have no reason to doubt that this part of your story is true. We know that such violent crimes are committed, not only here in the Philippines, but around the world. We love our children, our grandchildren, and such abuses of basic human rights and depriving of the innocence of childhood are repulsive to us. Those that hide behind their computer screens, paying money to watch and take perverted pleasure from this filth should, without question, be locked up and forever tainted by their actions. The girls refer to the perverted viewers as American maniacs. We have no problem with the notion, but surely you, as seasoned investigative journalist, must question how these 12-year-old girls appeared to know the nationality of the viewer and that the viewer was male? How did it know that when they would not be able to see who has sat at the computer terminal on the other side of the world? Is it just possible that someone needed the thoughts in their heads to deflect the true nature of the crime that allegedly have been perpetrated? In a balanced CNN documentary, we would have expected you to follow the trail of the person, most likely Filipino, who recruited the 12-year-old girls, purchased the computer and the cameras, set up the credit card payment system, and then promoted the service. This person is surely the real criminal and not just the perverted end user. Looking at the cause rather than the effect would surely be journalism 101. The fact of the matter is that Commander Levi is a known racist. She hates foreigners, in particular Westerners, and seeks to deflect blame in that direction under any circumstances. After 2 years of working with her, we would have thought that you would have might have worked this out. Maybe she makes an exception for those Westerners who keep feeding her the cash that she craves. Racism. In your program, Oibanda stated, "Every time I see a Westerner in the red light district, I know he's buying flesh." It is ironic that Oibanda omits that 80% of the customers in those so-called red light districts are Korean, Japanese, and Filipinos. This is a sweeping statement and highly racist in nature. Maybe, just maybe, some Westerners hang out for a drink to soak up the vibrant atmosphere that makes the Philippines so unique. But then maybe we know nothing about our own country. You may not be aware that almost 50% of the maritime crews around the world are Filipinos. How do you think they would feel if a foreigner accused every one of them of being a flesh buyer when they're relaxing in the ports around the world? Let's be frank here. The concept of a red light district is not limited to Manila and Angeles City or even the Philippines. I think those maritime crews would be outraged. CNN made huge drama out of Sergio Garcia's throwaway line inviting Tiger Woods for a dinner of fried chicken. This was built up by your agency to be a crass display of racism. However, the same agency stands by a documentary that portrays all Westerners in the Philippines as flesh buyers and criminals. Yet again, double standards are applied in the name of a good story and advertising revenue. Perish the thought that the truth might get in the way. At the beginning of your program, you show Westerner in a cab with a Filipina, and the assumption is that this is prostitution. We then combine this with Commander Levi's assumption that all Westerners are flesh buyers. Do we take it to mean that the hundreds of thousands of Filipinas married and partnered with Westerns, including Americans, are or were prostitutes and were victims of cash for flesh exchange? If that is what you're implying, we can assure you that there will be a lot of extremely upset people as a result. You wanted to deliver a message of the evils of human trafficking, and what you have achieved is an insult to Filipinas around the world. Very good job, CNN. Did you look at the supply of Philippine maids and domestic workers to places such as Hong Kong, Singapore, the Middle East? Did you look at the living condition of these people? Did you look at their hours of work and associated pay rates? Did you look at some of the reported abuses against these people? The answer is clearly no. These countries are the backbone of the developed world, and it's not possible that they could be guilty of anything other than the most upstanding behavior. Surely such upstanding citizen could not be guilty of racism towards Filipino people. You failed to comment on the latest practices employed at airports across the country, in particular in Manila, where Philippine citizens wishes to travel overseas are denied their constitutional right to do so. We're told that the reason for 21,709 Filipino citizens have been denied departing Manila between August and December 2012 was because these people were victims of illegal recruiters and human traffickers. Did your investigative journalists read the blogs of these same Philippine citizens that have been denied the right to leave? If they'd done so, it is possible they may have concluded that these people were not human trafficking victims, but helpless individuals being used to generate necessary statistics. The upsurge in denials was prompted by a report of the US State Department listing the Philippines in Tier 2 of its human trafficking watch list. Coincidentally, the US government had threatened to block all non-humanitarian aid to countries with serious trafficking problems, including the Philippines. 21,709 Philippine citizens have become statistics, a very powerful one that will ensure that the United States will not turn off the flow of cash. If these poor souls really were victims, then where are the headline-grabbing arrests of the illegal recruiters and traffickers? There are, of course, none. American citizens are not denied the right to leave their own country, unless, of course, they're trying to avoid justice. The contrast for us is stark. Due to American influence and application of double standards, we have no idea what will happen when we arrive at an airport in our own country, planning to travel on our own free will to a destination of our choice. We have been denied the rights embedded in our Constitution. Our human rights have been violated. These 21,709 citizens were not victims of human trafficking. They were victims of racism as a result of the moral crusade of the United States and certain NGOs. It is no coincidence that IGM agents openly operate with the Philippine Bureau of Immigration and National Bureau of Immigration. This is not about trafficking. This is about statistics that will blind the Western world and make sure that US dollars continue to flow. Okay, in conclusion, we are not trying to discredit the message that CNN is trying to deliver to the world. Genuine human trafficking must be stopped. Please do not come to our country, film us and show adults, but call them children. Do not stop our fellow citizens from trying to get a better life. And please do not take the racist remarks of one of the rogue Filipina as representative of a nation. The NGO gravy train was started by George Bush and have unwittingly inherited by President Obama. We believe he would be shocked if he knew the modus operandi of IGM, an NGO operating under his watch. I will put one thing more there. Obama made this Gary Haugen, the head of IGM, this is a few years later, an American hero. He was in the White House and got a medal from President Obama. The American taxpayers have been through enough with financial crisis and losses in job. They would be beside themselves with rage if they know that their tax dollars have been used to fund an organization operate outside the law in a foreign state in the name of the fight against human trafficking. As we are sure your investigative journalists establish, the restaurant, bar, and entertainment industry employs more than 2 million people. Quite natural for a country with buoyant economy that it's actively seeking to increase tourist appeal, regionally and globally. By destroying this industry of tax-paying, fully licensed businesses, IGM will force these people out of work. How does this sit with the Obama administration's domestic policy of creating jobs? Why are Americans coming here, oblivious to our culture and taking our jobs away? We in the Philippine restaurant, bar, and entertainment industry of the Philippines are not criminals. We obtain the licenses and permits required and issued by our own government. We operate legally and we do not employ minors under any circumstances. Despite this, IGM, the American NGO, has us locked up like savage animals and pushes dental equipment down our throats like slaves of the 1600s. Hilly-billy Mussolini and Stalin would have been proud of Haugen and his gang of thugs. Your program have catapulted Commander Levi Obama to stardom, and the news networks of the world portray her as a hero, fighting in the face of adversity. We, citizens of the Republic of the Philippines, does not see her as a hero. We do not condone her ambulance chasing tactics, and we want the truth to be known in respect of the alleged embezzlement of US dollars 5.1 million from USA. If the CNN Freedom Project really aims to assist people in the need to stamp out genuine human trafficking, then please meet with us and hear the story from those of us who have been victimized by your NGO, such as IGM. We have had enough and we want to hear, we'll be heard now. We're happy to come to Atlanta and meet with you to discuss the dark side of the Freedom Project. Please feel free to invite Mr. Gary Haugen and IGM. Maybe he will consider such an invite if it comes from such respectable organizations such as your own. You may also wish to invite Commander Levi. This may be dependent on her status with the Philippine Department of Justice and Bureau of Immigration. We have attached the following: an original letter to Jim Clancy of CNN. I will take that later. Our letter to Gary Haugen, the CEO of IGM. We have not received a response to either of these letters. We are a proud nation of nearly 100 million people. We have just recorded the highest GDP growth in the region at 7.8, even higher than China. We acknowledge that we need the help from time to time, but please, we do not need to be treated like criminals by Haugen, Commander Levi, and IGM. We certainly do not need CNN portraying these people as heroes. Respectfully yours, the Restaurant, Bar and Entertainment Support Group of the Philippines. It was a little bit long, but that was sent to CNN a long time ago, 2013, as I said. Anybody who wants to have the letter, I'm happy to send it out. I was asked to assist the victims of IGM and these NGOs. So we created that letter, and as I said, I hand-delivered it to CNN. They had nothing to do with me. We only arranged the letter. So thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great day.